So the speaker that I'm refuting's major claim was that illegal immigrants positively affect the nation. Her secondary claims were, one, that immigrants help the economy and increase the gross domestic product. Two, that many industries rely on illegal immigrants. And three, that illegal immigrants serve in the military. So her first claim was that illegal immigrants help the economy and increase the GDP by paying taxes and providing cheap labor. However, illegal immigrants don't pay enough taxes to offset their benefits, the benefits that they receive from the government, and their cheap labor creates unhealthy competition for low-income communities in the United States. So while illegal immigrants do generate millions in tax revenue annually, they don't pay enough to compensate for the Social Security benefits that they receive. According to Jason Richwine of Heritage.org, illegal immigrant households pay on average $11,500 in taxes, while they receive $46,500 in government benefits, and that's per household annually. So that results in about $35,000 deficit per household. Illegal immigrants that work for incredibly low wages actually end up damaging lower income communities in America. Especially African American and Latino communities experience lower wages and higher unemployment as businesses hire undocumented, low-wage immigrants to reduce their salary costs. As George J. Borjas from Politico.com puts it, immigration redistributes wealth from those who compete with immigrants to those who use immigrants, from the employee to the employer. Additionally, illegal immigrants send a large portion of the money that they make in the U.S. to the families in their native countries. So this results in about $70 billion annually flowing from the U.S. economy to Mexico's. Mexico exploits the influx of income by supporting and encouraging illegal immigration to the U.S. as well. Actually, in 2004, the Mexican government even provided a guidebook which detailed the dangers of crossing the border, but also described how to cross the border safely and avoid the immigration authorities once in America. Her second claim was that the agriculture industry relies on illegal immigrants. However, the agricultural industry doesn't particularly rely on them, it just uses them and exploits them to keep their profits as high as possible. According to a report by Wallace Huffman and Alec McCune, only 17% of the total labor force in the agriculture industry consists of undocumented workers. Additionally, labor accounts for less than half of the production costs of farm produce. Huffman and McCune concluded that replacing undocumented, underpaid immigrants with legal workers who receive fair pay would increase the costs of supermarket produce by less than 5%. Her third claim was that illegal immigrants serve in the military, but this actually isn't true. Illegal immigrants aren't permitted to enlist in the military. So she stated in her speech that almost 60,000 immigrants are currently serving in the U.S. military, but that number actually represents documented immigrants that are either living in the U.S. permanently with a green card or have citizenship. She also referred to an article on USA Today which described the proposed MAVNI, which is Military Accessions Vital to the National Interest Program. This program allows acceptance of undocumented immigrants into the military only under the condition that their acceptance is deemed vital to the national interest, which basically means they can speak probably about 5 different languages, or they can have a renowned expertise in various medical fields. However, since its conception, the MAVNI program only received about 1,500 applicants, and then it never ended up opening because it was so difficult to reform the military screening system to allow the MAVNI program to be put into place. That's it.
I'm sorry. All right, structural stuff is identified very clearly, signposted throughout the speech, easy to follow. Mostly presenting counterclaims on these individual issues. The first one, you talk about how the costs are not offset by the taxes, and you've got a good piece of information on that, explaining that. That's pretty straightforward. There's not really any explanation about what the advocate's evidence was and what it said. So, this is basically what we've got is this one piece of information. It would be nice if you could contrast the information you have to what the advocate presented on their point, so we can maybe make an assessment as to which piece of information seems more reasonable. But we're not getting that kind of comparison. On the counterclaim on wages and how it influences the lowering of the wages that affect particular groups, again, you explain what the counterclaim is. You've got some testimony and authority that supports that. I don't know that this sounds like it was a separate argument, that there wasn't really a direct argument that the advocate was making, except that it keeps wages low, and you're in essence saying the low wages have a harm on particular people, which I think is a reasonable counterpoint to present. I also like the extra point that you have here, kind of an additional harm on that first point concerning the economy, that a lot of money gets sent overseas as a consequence, and you specifically cite Mexico, and that Mexico is exploiting that relationship, I think, is also an interesting point on that. On the issue of the agricultural industry, again, I don't know what the advocate's information was. There's not any discussion of what their information said. We've got a couple of pieces of good data that you have here, suggesting that it's only a small percentage of the agriculture employment that are illegal immigrants, and that the impact that they have on wages on prices is relatively small. And you've got a good statistic there that said it would increase prices less than 5%. So in essence, if we were going to offer reasonable wages to people to perform these jobs, they'd be willing to do those jobs, and they wouldn't be passing them off to illegal or undocumented immigrants who are being exploited. I think that's one of those things that you could maybe compare with the argument up above that talks about groups of people who are at the low end of the wages, who are having difficulty getting a job because they're unwilling to take jobs that pay less than minimum wage because some undocumented worker is willing to do that makes it difficult for them to get access to jobs. So I think there's an application of that argument to this particular point. And the third point, you suggest that illegal immigrants cannot legally enlist in the military. That's an important piece of factual data. You should have a source citation on that. You do say that the advocate said that there were 60,000 immigrants who are currently serving in the military, and you say that that's only under limited circumstances. They've got a green card, they're here legally, they're in the process and following the procedures there. That, I think, is a distinct piece of information, and the more clear you could make the validity of the factual argument that you're presenting here, the better it would be for you. And then I think you did present a particular program that hasn't had all that much success, given that it's designed to encourage people who do have specialized skills here, and there just aren't a lot of people who are applying for that, and it's not been a success. I appreciated that. You need the summary. That's what we're missing here. You just kind of finish, and I think everybody was kind of waiting for you to say something so that we knew that you were finished, and then you said, I'm finished. I think you need something a little bit more forceful and graceful than that. Thank you. Kat.